Welcome on into BKL Nightly. This is the Let's Talk Ball edition. I'm Thad Brown. He's Carl Jones. Every single week, we break down the all-22 film from every single Bills game, talk about the X's and O's, the players that starred, the players that didn't. And Carl, this week, off a 26-7 win over the Steelers that was impressive on both sides of the ball, there will be many flowers being thrown the Bills' way. And we start with none other than the guy who probably fielded the most arrows since the Houston Texans game. The thing that stood out to me over and over and over, and not just in the run game, was how good a game plan this offense was set up to have by Joe Brady going into the Pittsburgh game.
Man, you want to talk about the stigma with Joe Brady being, oh, he's so predictable. Oh, it hurts and limits the Bills' offense. Well, it was predictable in this game, too. Steelers knew it was coming. You heard TJ Watt after the game. I've never seen a team run the same play over and over again. But I will give Joe Brady credit of not having a big ego in this game and saying, oh, I need to throw this wrinkle out there. I need to throw this out there. We worked on this play all week in practice. I need to put it in the game on Sunday. No, they ran two plays in the run game, at least all game. They ran weak zone, so running away from the passing strength. Then they ran duo, which is basically just right downhill, big boy football, my guys against yours. And I got to give them credit. They did a phenomenal job of working, of sticking to what worked. And also at this point as well, inherently, this Buffalo Bills team doesn't want to chip their tackles and give those guys help. They just believe in the concept of getting five guys out. For this game, they swallowed their pride, and probably out of necessity, they did that and adapted to something they haven't done in literal years, and that's give their tackles help probably 50, 60% of the time. So I just want to give him, Cromer, and anyone else involved their flowers for adjusting, if it's even 1 week, but adjusting because I haven't seen them do it too often.
I'll go back to the passing game in a minute. Let's go back to the run game because you're right. It was two plays. I actually counted it up. Now look, for everybody at home, knowing exactly what a team is running in a run scheme is not an exact science, but in my educated by Bills linemen, things online, whatever, I counted 31 plays that were either inside zone, weak side, or duo to the strong side. And the point about that I want to start with is the Bills were right-handed the whole game. They lined up, forget about what they ran. They lined up in the same formation the whole game. It was 5 on the line of scrimmage with the offensive line, and then some combination of tight ends and receivers attached to the formation to the right. Usually 3 of them, not always, but most of the time. And that was all they did. And then they ran 2 plays out of it. One, that was a left-leaning play, like we said, the inside zone. That's the one where if you're watching or listening at home, if you see James Cook start to the left and cut back to the right, 98% of the time, that's an inside zone play where Cook is just reading it back to the inside. He loves to do that. It's a play most people like to read that way. That's what the Bills did. And then the dual play, like you said, was the downhill play. Of the 249 rushing yards the Bills had in this game, I counted 193 on those 31 run plays. And those are just the running back run plays. That's totally ignoring what Josh Allen brought to the game. I want to ask you, as someone who played Division I defense, not defensive tackle, but corner, why can't the Steelers adjust to that? You would think, like we said, it's 2 plays. TJ Watt knew it. Everybody in the building knew it, what the Bills were doing. Why did it continue to work all game long?
2 reasons. I'll speak from a defensive back perspective on the first point. I don't think they had the cornerbacks that were willing to get dirty and put their face in the fan. There were a few plays where they actually did a good job of congesting things in the middle, but you just alluded to it. James Cook just fell off the table and said, okay, no one's in the D or E or even F gap in some scenarios, and I'm just going to bounce it outside, whether it was Joey Porter Jr., whether it was an Asante Samuel, or I believe number 42 up, which I believe is James Pierre. None of those guys wanted to stick their face in the fan and get dirty. Hand up, I vividly remember, I believe it was 2019 or 18 Boston College. Your boy, it was A.J. Dillon running right downhill. I said, let me get nosy and peek my head inside a little bit. I ain't trying to meet him on the perimeter. So I get it. But that's one reason why. And then I think the other example is it gets a little bit more technical about how the Steelers use their front. TJ Watt is technically an outside backer, and they have a 5 down front. So the numbers are really weird in the run game. So if you are able to get a hat on a hat and all those guys went up front, there's no second level defender for the Steelers outside of the one backer. So I think part of it is want to by the guys in the Steelers secondary just not wanting to get dirty. And the other is an actual systemic issue. Because by the end of the game, there was a screenshot. I don't know if you saw it. There were 4 Steelers defenders outside of the wide receiver for the Bills saying, you guys are not going to bounce it outside. And the Bills still ran that way and got like 3 yards. Now, Josh Allen probably should have flipped the play. But that goes to show you just how confused and just the Steelers just had no answer for what the Bills had for them Sunday afternoon.
You're right about the corner thing. That was something that became apparent the further the game went along. Joey Porter was one of the primary guys who were targeted for this. And on that play, where, yeah, there were 4 bodies out there, but the Bills would block 3 of them, and then one guy's free. Look, this is, folks, standard run blocking. Like your most average run play in the NFL is everybody but one guy gets blocked up, because if you match numbers, well, the offense has a quarterback who doesn't block, so somebody's free. And usually the running back, it's their job to make sure that guy doesn't make a tackle. But you've said many times in this show, if you can make that guy the corner for exactly the reasons you talked about, you can win, because he doesn't want to tackle. And that's what happened with this game with the Steelers, that the corners did not want to participate in the run stop when it came to running this game. Let's talk a little bit more about the blocking in particular, because yes, the tackles were backups, and I thought Alec Anderson and Ryan Vandermark, I'm going to get to them in a little bit, they were fine. But what really sprung this is how well the Bills blocked on the edges with receivers and tight ends. We've talked a lot about Jackson Hawes. To be honest, I don't think this was anywhere close to his best game.
Right.
But having him in the lineup, I spent a lot of time thinking, what if this was Dalton Kincaid playing that role? What if this was Quentin Morris playing? Exactly. Having Jackson Hawes, just the ability to block like that, Carl, how much did it open up what the Bills want to do in the run game as a whole against Pittsburgh?
Respectfully, if Kincaid was healthy, he don't play no more than 5 snaps Sunday.
Yep.
Dawson Knox, Jackson Hawes, Khalil Shakir, Tyrell Shavers, all those guys won their 111s on Sunday and did a good job of winning up front, whether it was Jackson Hawes against TJ Watt for majority of that game, Dawson Knox doing his job against linebackers, Tyrell Shavers, a couple times where he met Jalen Ramsey 5 yards down the field and said, "Come here, big boy. I don't care about what you did at Florida State or in Los Angeles. It's 2025 now." Huge kudos to the guys, especially, listen, I know they tell us all the time, like, hey, we'll do anything to help the team out. They want to catch the rock. They want to score touchdowns, swallow their pride for Sunday, and help the team out in that manner. I want to give them their flowers for that.
Yeah, Shavers has been a really good run blocker all year. He was, again, I thought of the group, he was the best of the 3. And Khalil Shakir, the one guy who's going at this without really a body type that should allow you to block this way, really made an effort to be a part of this and was a key blocker on a couple different occasions. The other point I want to make, that I don't know if this was planned or if it just worked out this way, but by putting all those bodies on the right side, on the TJ Watt side, the Bills really never even had to totally block Watt. What happened on a number of plays was there was so much traffic there, so many bodies. Watt might have, there were 2 or 3 plays where Watt was engaged with Jackson Hawes, literally tossed Hawes to the ground, but couldn't make a play because there's 5 other guys right next to him, engaged, winning, losing, it didn't matter. So they took Watt out of the play, not by necessarily targeting him, just by making so much traffic around him, he couldn't really do anything with it. Let's move to the passing side of this, because not only was the run game plan excellent, I loved everything that Joe Brady did in the passing game as well. Everything was short, quick, slants, screens. He made sure that we have 2 tackles that are not, I don't want to say prepared, but are not experienced enough to go against a guy of TJ Watt's caliber. We're going to make sure those guys are not going to become the problem. We're going to remove them from the equation as much as possible. The game script helped, but Carl, we talk about Joe Brady not trying to reinvent the wheel. This was level logic, and it worked fine.
I want to give him flowers also for one grouping that he used, and that's the pony personnel. For those at home, that is 2 running backs. There were a few plays where he had Ty Johnson as well as James Cook out there, and both players you feel comfortable in space in terms of as a receiver. So the fact that he felt comfortable in a game plan that was a necessity. Listen, we got to get the ball out quick. Let's give it out to Ty Johnson on the perimeter, or he can be the lead blocker for a James Cook. I imagine they put this in Tuesday afternoon and said, we'll see if it works on Sunday. The ability to pivot and adjust. I criticized them, I don't know if it was last week or the week prior, about his inability to pivot, change things. I can't sit up here and just totally disregard that after what I saw on Sunday.
He did so many things that were the logical, smart thing. And even talked about it later, about sticking with the run plays over and over, that, yeah, you're worried about doing it too many times because when you miss, it's 2nd and 13. And that was even something that happened to the Bills in the first quarter. But having the guts to stay with it, having it be the right call, so many parts of it were good. The other thing I saw on a few occasions was the guards were uber ready to help out the tackles in pass blocking situations. And there are a number of plays where guards are supposed to, they'll tell you, look, if you don't have anybody, scan and look to help someone else. Anytime that happened in this game, whoever it was, immediately to the tackle. Like, what's going on the edge, whether it's Vandy or Alec, they both were getting plenty of help, chips and everything else. I do want to talk about the two guys themselves. I thought for the most part, the game went pretty much how you would think backup tackles would look against players of that caliber. It was not spectacular. I thought Alex settled in a little better for two reasons. One, I think the run game, the game plan favors his style of play a little more. And then, like we talked about, the Bills were so heavy right-handed, he was the only guy that got chances. Vandy spent most of the game making seal blocks 5 gaps down from where the play was going. I don't know if he was good or bad. I mean, I do know, but the point is he wasn't really involved. So there was hard for him to really make an impact because everything was just going the other way. But there was good reason for the Bills to want those guys to have help because it was a rough and I'm sure educational day at the office for those backup tackles.
I know the Bills hope, and if they can go back in time, man, they wish they could have kept that running game going against the Texans because that's one way that you could have slowed down a Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. Stop being NASCAR drivers and make sure that y'all monster truck guys and get in the run game. Nah, Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, they had their hands on a 40-yard track stance that entire game because they knew the threat of the running game wasn't there. So that's one way you slow down. And Nick Herbig, who I don't think made a single play, and Alex Highsmith, who didn't, I don't know if his name was ever called, and then TJ Watt. Have those guys like, all right, come off the ball. Is it a run play? Okay, it's not. Now I can go. I think that's the game script played a huge part in how that game turned out for the Texans.
Well, and those two guys are better pass rushers. So if you make them do the thing they're worse at, that's going to be good for you. And again, this was all goes back to how smart this Brady game plan was. It was nothing crazy. It was nothing ridiculously elegant. It was, what do we have? Okay, let's make our strengths work and avoid our weaknesses. And it worked phenomenally. One other thing that I want to get to with the offense, one of the reasons it worked, the running backs were spectacular in this game. James Cook being able to find space. Look, it's one thing to draw it up on the whiteboard that we're going to target the corners. There were a few plays where James Cook just made it happen on his own, whether by his speed or by his instincts. Ray Davis ran through a number of arm tackles, stepped out of at least one by the line of scrimmage to turn into a 10-yard gain. He was really good. Ty Johnson, every time that guy touches the ball, if you need 3 yards, he's going to get you 3.5. If you tackle him at 4, he's going to get you 5. Everything was falling forward. Those guys made so many of these plays work in a game that, look, the Bills ran for a ton of yardage, but it never really felt easy. This whole game, watching it back, it felt like a grind. I had to count up, like, were they really even successful? There were things I was looking at wondering, did the Bills really do all this? Because play to play, it looked like they were fighting and clawing for everything, but it helped the running backs won a lot of those fights.
All 3 of them, whether it was Ty Johnson, should have been stopped on 3rd down, but he's able to get that extra yard on the sideline. Whether it was Ray, I haven't seen Ray Davis find holes like that in the run game since Kentucky. That's been the one thing about Ray Davis is, he's a plow guy on the goal line or in short yardage situation. The fact that he was turning plays that should have been 2 yards into 8 and 9, I'm like, hold on now, you dipping in James Cook's bag now. That's what he do. You over here getting dressed with him now. So I think that was cool to see. And if you're a Bills fan, if you're Joe Brady and everyone involved, you want to see him do that going forward because I'm not lying. I haven't seen him do that consistently in a game like that. I probably watched him once in Kentucky because I'm not about to sit up here and lie to y'all and say I'm watching Kentucky football every Saturday. I'll tell you that.
Good day all around. And look, there's been James Cook's had such a good year, it's been hard to get him off the field. Ray Davis played well enough in that game to where you wonder maybe they do need a little more of 22 in the ball game. All right, let's flip to the defensive side of the ball. And you talked about this on X, and it stood out certainly to me watching the game afterward. Christian Benford versus DK Metcalf was very much a win for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, he had, I believe, 10 man coverage reps against DK Metcalf, and he didn't give up a single catch. And I think partly due to the fact that DK runs a very limited route tree because of his skill set, and also the Pittsburgh Steelers run a very Division III Class D football type of offense. It is very elementary
and vanilla. Tell us what you really think, Carl.
Yeah, no, listen, I can't. Watching the Bills defense, I was more frustrated watching the Pittsburgh Steelers than I was the Bills. That 4th and 2 play, why is Jonnu Smith blocking Greg Rousseau?
From the outside, too. A defense that constantly shades inside, wants to congest the middle, and you have a tight end that's set up outside. So Rousseau's got the leverage with where you know they're going to go because they do that all the time, and then you ran it straight at him. Yeah, it was about as dumb a play as you can call on that spot.
And you have a 500-pound tight end.
Yeah.
I asked him to do that. Regardless, the Steelers, the whole Fire Tomlin stuff, I feel y'all pain in terms of the entire ecosystem going on over there. But I digress. In terms of Christian Benford, I thought that he played really sound and patient. And when I think about body types and players who Benford's best against, it is those maybe plotters off the line of scrimmage. I think about his time back with when he played Mike Evans a few years back when he came to Highmark Stadium. He's so patient at the line of scrimmage and he's so physical and so strong. He don't mind getting dirty with those bigger boys. So I think that this was a good matchup for his skill set. Now, next week will be a little different. Jamar Chase is Mr. Do Everything, and T. Higgins is a big boy, but he don't win in that way. He's more of an elusive guy down the field. So I'm interested to see how that matches up. But in terms of what he did against DK, whether it was on the goal line, whether it was a couple press man reps early on in the game, I thought that he clearly won that fight. If we got a 12 round, if it was 12 rounds, I think he won 10 out of them and knocked DK down a couple times.
Yeah, unanimous decision at the very least, for sure, if not a TKO. It was really good. Let me ask you this about Benford. And you talk about the one rep at the goal line where he took away the slant that would have been a touchdown if he's not playing great defense. We haven't talked about him much most of this year. And I think early in the year, the comment was, he's good, but maybe not the lockdown guy we thought he was. Do we think he has ascended at all? And I don't want to put him up in the lockdown in the Asante and the Pat Surtain, Daryl Stingley category, but has he improved at all from that first month where we were kind of maybe a little bit disappointed?
He's improved from where he was in September, but I would never put him in the category of the names you just mentioned because the Bills don't ask him to be those guys. Right. And I think it'll be disrespectful to those guys when Benford's playing man 10 times a game and Stingley's like, wait a second, I play man 10 times in the first quarter. So right. I think that and it's not Benford's fault they don't ask of him to do that, but I can't sit up here and tell you and put him in those categories. After a long dissertation with myself this offseason, I reevaluated how I do cornerbacks, and I hold man corners in a much different light now. You guys heard me talk about Benford being a top 10 guy last year. That's a last year conversation, just based off of I just value guys who run 10 miles a game a little bit more than the guys who sit in zone.
Let's move closer to the line of scrimmage just a little bit here because Shaq Thompson continues to make plays over and over. And the thing that stood out to me in this game was his recognition. You saw the 10 years of experience, in my opinion, in this game. He triggered quick on so many runs. I told you about it before we started recording. There's one where the run is away from his side to Matt Milano's side, and he is darn near in front of Matt Milano to make the play. And this is no knock on Milano, who's got different responsibilities. It just shows you how fast Thompson is reacting to run plays and stopping run plays. Give me your take on Shaq Thompson, and then we will have the Shaq v. Terrell Bernard debate that everybody in the world is having when it comes to the Bills defense.
Oh, I want to make this quick because I want to have that debate. I thought that Shaq Thompson's number one thing that he brought to this Bills defense, well, two things. An edge, a sense of physicality that this team has been lacking since Michael Hoyt departed the lineup. I thought that was so apparent on Sunday against the Steelers. And also, to dive into the weeds a little bit here, Terrell Bernard is more of a guy I'm going to beat you to the spot to make a tackle. Shaq Thompson has a little bit of that in his bag, although he's not as athletic as he used to be. But he's not scared to stack and shed and say, hey, if an old lineman got his hands on me, I'll put my paws back on you, not throw you to the ground, but move you out of the way. And I think that helps out a Bills run defense that is terrible right now. And there's a lot of times where Terrell Bernard gets washed out. Let's have the debate. What do you think? Where should the Bills go if and when TB returns to the lineup?
Before this game, I was a little bit on the fence. I was, all right, Bernard has a little better athleticism down the field. I think I trust him in coverage a little bit better, although his coverage reps this year have been not good at all for a whole bunch of different reasons. This game, to me, I saw a different, you talk about the aggression and the edge, you saw that. That bled off the tape watching Shaq Thompson in this game. The recognition, the ability to be physical at the line of scrimmage. You brought that up as something the Bills have been lacking, and I almost blurted out, especially at that position, because it's true. You don't see that, and that's just how the Bills have built their linebackers. That's how they built the roster. Shaq Thompson is a different player. To me, I don't take Shaq Thompson out of the lineup until he gives me a very obvious, concrete reason to do it. He has been by far the best linebacker on this team. The defense feels better. I like the run defense better, although better is not hard to get to because, as you said, the bar is pretty low right now. I am fully on board with Shaq Thompson as the starter on the defense with a bullet and without a question.
I'm right with you 110%, especially with D tackles that aren't that stellar. So there are going to be a lot of times where offensive linemen can climb to that second level. Do you have a backer that has the ability to shake him off of him and still make a play? Because for all of TB's strengths, that isn't one of them. If you get your paws on him, the kind of play is over with from his perspective. Shaq Thompson at least gives you a fighting chance where if a 300-pound lineman puts his paws on him, Shaq has the strength and the wherewithal to be like, excuse me, Not right now. Their running back is coming through the B gap. I got to go make a play.
To be honest, if Bernard is healthy, there's a world in which I almost would want to see if he could play Milano's weak side position, because Milano got beat in coverage a couple times by, checking notes, Kenny Gainwell. And when it's
Sean
Chase
Tucker.
Brown,
Sean Tucker.
exactly. When it's Chase Brown, when it's Saquon Barkley coming up in the next couple games, that's not a matchup I want to have to deal with if I'm the Bills. I don't know if Bernard will be better, because again, his pass stuff has not been great this year, but I would think about that if Bernard can play that outside position. I don't even know if that's even possible at this point. I want to talk about the coverage in general for this game, because there was one strength on strength matchup the Bills won pretty clearly. The Steelers came into this game very productive with their tight ends, top 7 in yards and receptions, number 2 in touchdowns this year, and the Bills totally took that out of the game. And I thought that was a top to bottom, safeties, nickels, corners to a degree, but most of the guys on the inside. There's a play that stands out to me, I think it was third quarter, where Big Darnell Washington comes across the formation, and Milano, I think it's Dorian, passes it to Milano, passes it to Shaq, and all 3 guys had it covered. The Bills' coverage as a whole in this game, Benford obviously included, I thought was really, really a big part of what made this defense work.
I know we like to throw cold water on the Bills defense. I'll say this, though. I'm ready to say that the Bills pass defense is objectively good. I wouldn't say anything more than that. I think it's a B. But I think that when you have a matchup where a team is playing with one hand behind their backs and that hand and the other hand has a broken wrist, literally, I think that they can embarrass you, which happened on Sunday. I don't know if I would have said that 72 hours ago, where I've been like, I don't know, Aaron Rodgers can make something shake. Those tight ends are good. It's because here's the logic here. If you're the Buffalo Bills, if we keep everything in front of us and the only player that can beat us over the top is DK, and we feel comfortable that Christian Benford can make that competitive, we're keeping everything in front of us, and we're going to rally and make sure that Darnell Washington and Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth, who I don't even know if he played. If he did, he ain't do nothing out there.
You're right.
I think that it's different when they're playing a team that can stretch all areas of the field. But it's much easier where I can just trigger downhill because I'm not threatening nothing behind me. If I'm Cole Bishop, I'm sitting flat-footed at 12 yards, and I'm ready. I'm itching. I'm ready to go. Same thing with Jordan Poyer, Dorian Williams, Matt Milano. So I do want to give them credit for executing it. And also, I always say this, and I do not understate this. Just because you're playing a bad team doesn't mean that it's okay to just roll the ball out there and just play ball. Make them look like a bad team. Make them look like a unit that's not supposed to be out there with you. And a Bills pass defense, who I now think is objectively good. I wouldn't say great. Hold on now. We just saw the Houston Texans. But I think that they are a team that has shown you they can embarrass a unit if that unit doesn't come to play. And that's exactly what happened in Pittsburgh.
It's funny. When you first said that, my first recoil was good, no. But the more you make your point and the more I think about it, especially when you say, going against a team that has one wrist that's broken, which is what they essentially did in this game. Yeah, they did really embarrass this Pittsburgh offense. Now, Aaron Rodgers missed a couple too. He was not good either. But you look at the makeup of this team. Benford, I think, is a plus player. Cole Bishop, we've talked about, a plus player. Taron Johnson might be on the backside. I think still a plus player. Jordan Poyer, frankly, has been a heck of a lot better than I would have expected. Shaq Thompson is developing into a plus player. There's enough guys in that secondary that, yeah, they're not going to go into this game against the Bengals since he's at full strength and expect to get shut down. No. But, yeah, when it's the Steelers or the Browns and I mean, even that level to me is too low. I think above the average line, I totally agree. I think this Bills defense, at minimum, has gotten to that point. And the other part of it, too, is what's happening up front, especially in this game. I want to flash Deion Walker for a minute. Or flash was the wrong word. I'm sorry. Let me back that up. I want to mention that Deion Walker flashed. That's going to be on YouTube for a long time, isn't it? Anyway, he had a good game. Couple good swim moves, created some pass pressure. Joey Bosa, too. We all saw the splash play, but he really helped to create it. When I first saw it, I thought, well, that's a coverage sack. Took him 4.5 seconds to get there. Well, he was the one that created the initial pressure that got Aaron Rodgers dancing, then he finished it off. He has been consistently good and was again in this game. We're not going to talk about the run defense being poor because it wasn't, and I think that's also a credit to the guys up front. This was probably, Carl, objectively, the best game the D-line has had in total, minute 1 to minute 60 all year long.
No, not even close. I know some people will point to maybe the Jets game from the first or second or third week of the year. Nah, I think this game was much better in terms of totality and what they were able to do. Because even Breece Hall had moments. I'm not going to say he did great, but he had moments. in that game back in September. At no point in this game against the Steelers did I think that the Bills' defense was going to be the reason they lost this game. And that's huge to Joey Bosa, who unfortunately his wrist looked healthier, but then come to find out Monday afternoon that his hamstring is struggling. We don't know currently, as we talked to you on Tuesday, the prognosis, how long he will be out, if he is even out this week. But he looked like a player like, oh, the wrist isn't bothering him as much, and it showed at least in the stat sheet.
He has been, like I said, good all year and a consistent force. And I don't know if he's been, Von Miller in his prime, what the Bills thought they were getting when they signed him 3 years ago, but maybe a notch down from that. And again, this is all the good things we talked about, all the Joe Brady game plan, the way Christian Benford plays. If Joey Bosa doesn't get that sack fumble, we might not be having this conversation at all, because at that point in the game, it was still 7-3. And that's, another thing we talk about all the time, that it's never as good or as bad as you think. And when I went back and watched the offense, I was thinking, wow, 250 record set. This is going to look awesome. It did not look anywhere close to that awesome. And I had to even kick myself to, hey, remember, it's not going to look as good as you think. You've hyped it up too much. This game was a slog for the Bills up until that first play of the third quarter. And then all of a sudden, everything started going downhill because of the play Joey Bosa made in this game. One question I want to throw at you. We didn't get time to talk about this last week, and it came up. We talked about the corners for the Steelers not tackling. The Bills were a little guilty of it too. Trey White has developed an Olay tackle where he doesn't get his body in front. He's going to kind of grab a guy as he goes by, which failed spectacularly against Darnell Washington a couple times, as you would expect it to. As someone who's played this game at a high level, when it comes to, and I don't mean general effort, but I mean, I always make an analogy to, in baseball, you don't expect a major league player to run out a routine grounder in the third inning of a game in June, because you know what it's going to be and you want to save the body for later. Is the parts of the NFL where corners maybe don't put 100% effort into a tackle, or guys who are on the outside, corners and receivers, kind of taking a play off when it's a dive up the middle? Or another thing that fans were mad about in the Houston game, when Deion Dawkins seemed to stop blocking in a couple spots where I would argue that he had kind of done his job, and it's hard to be on that guy about blocking for 7 seconds every single play, even if Josh Allen's the quarterback. How does that stuff play in a locker room like the NFL from the guys in the league and the experience you had playing at that level?
Oh, it's a non-negotiable. It truly is, because I think that there's one thing that you can control as a player, and this goes across any sport. It's your effort. I can't control how high I can jump. I can't control if Jamar Chase is going to sauce me up on the line of scrimmage. I can't control if Josh Allen's going to hurdle me. But I can control if I'm on the backside of a formation and a run breaks out and I'm jogging instead of sprinting. Because now, as we've seen so many times, Christian Benford, Max Harrison, all these players make backside tackles. Even Taylor Rapp last year against Jonathan Taylor. How many times does that turn into, oh, they got to stop in the goal line and end up kicking a field goal? And that's just one example. If you're a player in that locker room, you're doing a disservice to everyone behind you, next to you, who, look at Shaq Thompson. You see him running through walls, putting his body on the line. That boy is 30 years old, living in an ice bath, probably in boots, Normatec, and you don't want to give the effort. So I think that it's more so a disrespect to the guys who are willing to do it, and you out there like, yeah, I ain't trying to be in the ice bath all Monday, maybe just the first half of the day. So I think that's how guys usually take that type of look out there on the field.
Even on plays where players understand that, look, if it's a handoff off the middle and I am the ex-receiver standing next to my head coach on the sideline, is that guy still expected to block it 1,000%? No,
and the reason why is, and it makes sense, if I'm like the star player, y'all need me to be 100% on the plays that matter the most. So if we are 100% certain that I'm not going to be involved, let's jog this off the line and make sure that, because I will be doing my team a disservice if on third down I'm only at 80% instead of 95%. So I think it's a little give and take, and you got to make sure that you got your head on a swivel and making sure you're not living in la la land. But guys they got common sense. Like Jamar Chase on Tuesday, if it's a toss to the left and he's the right receiver, hey, I'm jogging off the ball here. Let's make sure that we both good to go on third down when it matters the most.
All right, fair enough. A topic that I really wish we had more time for, but appreciate the thoughts on that for sure. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of BKL Nightly. Remember, you can always find these episodes on Rochester First, WIBB Plus, on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts every single week of the year. Next week, we will talk about the Bills, and the Bengals should be a fun one, especially against that Cincinnati passing game. For Carl Jones, I'm Thad Brown. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you again next week.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.